due to be finished here at the end of the week. Yep, I guarantee it. Hey, Pavel! Jim over there! Jim, what the hell are you doing?
How do you mean? I'm on my lunch.
11:30. We're 2 days behind and the word is you're slowing the team down.
I'm here every day.
Doing what?
Giving it my best shot. You know the score, Gavin, but when I feel a bit off, I've got to come down.
You're a bloody scaffolder. What use are you to me on the ground?
Look, I'm sick of this. I'm away home. I'll catch some Zeds and I'll be brand new tomorrow, you'll see.
No, Jim. I've heard complaints. This can't go on. I need to replace you.
No, you don't.
I'm sorry, Jim. You're done. It's a health and safety issue now.
You can't sack me for having cancer.
Well, I'm not sacking you. We're all self-employed now, remember? But you're not up to the job.
You stop talking like I'm a liability. You know, I keep this team together. Who found Pavel? Me. Who trained him up? Me.
And who loses the next contract because I run over on this one? Me.
Well, get someone to cover me then. A couple of days, just to tide me over.
When we tendered for this, we were cut to the bone. That's how we got the contract. You know I can't pay 2 guys for 1 job.
Where does that leave me?
Oh, hopefully with critical illness cover.
I didn't have the extra cash.
We talked about this years ago.
I haven't been off ill a day in my life. You know, it just seemed like a waste of money.
Well, what am I meant to do about it?
Just let me keep working. I'm feeling good now. I'll go back up, work through my lunch.
And if you have an accident this afternoon? Jim, you're running on empty.
Christ. I'd be better off if someone just shoved me off the top platform and killed me. My wife and kids would get a decent payout then.
Don't talk like that, you'll get through this.
Yeah, with all your help and support. I can't thank you enough.
I've got 9 other guys to consider. I'm trying to do my best for all of them. And if you were in my shoes, Jim, you'd do the same thing.
Find out what my rights are. I'll fight this any way I can. If I don't work, I don't earn. We've got 3 young kids and my wife stays at home to look after them. I'm the only one bringing in a wage right now. I'm not going to end up living on benefits.
Pavel, can you phone Yarek right now and see if he can start this afternoon?
So what's happening now?
Well, we're phoning round for a replacement. Pavel's got a friend, we've used him on bigger jobs, he'd be ideal.
And Jim?
Well, what can I tell you? The guy's got cancer and it's a crying shame, but life goes on. But for the way he was talking, I think I've done the right thing. You don't need a guy who's feeling hard done by way up there swinging around lumps of metal. He was going to snap sooner or later, and on a building site, that's a recipe for disaster. I just couldn't take the risk.
Regarding my actual rights to sickness benefit, I've been with the council an awful lot of years, and quite frankly, I knew what the sort of situation was regarding full payment for 6 months and half payment for 6 months. You know, and then normally what happens, the situation's obviously reviewed over the year. And then when your salary ceases, obviously, it's going to be time to reconsider. Do you get back to work, or alternatively, do you take early retirement?
Well, I was told word of mouth from someone else that this is what I would get because I have never been sick. I didn't know how to go about it. And I believe you learn as you go along. And it was someone else that said to me, you'll get, after 4 weeks, you will get 3 weeks' wages, and then you go back on sick pay. And that is exactly what happened.
I think the fact that my employer had discussed that with me and went through that meant I didn't have to worry about it. It was one less thing that I didn't need to worry. I didn't have to sit there wondering if I still had a job to go back to, what was happening. That, it just wasn't a concern of mine, because the employer had been very straight with me at the beginning. This is what was happening, and very supportive. Then it wasn't a concern. So I think it's really important at that time that you've got enough to be dealing with, to be worrying about, that you don't have to start worrying about your job still being there at the end of once you're well again.
Well, in terms of their job, keeping it open for them, it is really dependent on what businesses have in place in their terms and conditions. And I think, they should look at their terms and conditions at that point as well, the employee, about what they've agreed to do and how long they're going to pay them for. Generally, you would say that some it's 6 months, and they would review your employment in a year. And if somebody's not been at work for a year, then the employers have the right to question their employability at that point. But usually there is about a year, and in our business it is about a year that we would look at that. It depends on the sickness absence policy again, and when they're going to pay them and that kind of thing, because that in itself can cause a lot more stress as well, pay and their conditions, because they've still got to live and look after their families, and I think generally if they know what the policy is when they first start. But it is a shock, and if they can continue to pay them and look after them as long as they can. But it's very dependent on the amount of staff that you can employ and how long you can afford to backfill that post.
The employer has a right to expect the person to fulfil the contract that they've undertaken. That's the employment contract. I'm not an expert at these things. However, you do have, as an employer, a responsibility to the individual. You've got a duty of care to the individual. So you have to make sure they're safe. You also have to make sure they're working in a reasonable environment. And I think you can only do that by discussing what the issues are. Aside from the duty of care, there is a responsibility to now look at adjustments. Cancer in the workplace is part of the disability discrimination legislation now, and there is, a requirement to do that. Disability, you could say, needs to be over a longer period of time, but I think it's good practice we're talking about, really, as opposed to what you have to do according to the law.